Our power is in our voice. Our power, it's in our thoughts. Our power is in our actions. Our power, it's already innate in who we are. We are the earth. We are the sky. We are the trees. We are our ancestors. We are the future generations. We are all that is.
All right, welcome to day 5 of the People's Reset 2026. Who's happy to be here? Make some noise. Welcome to everybody at home. Thank you for being here with us. For everybody in person, who was at the concert last night and who had a good time? As you can tell, I almost lost my voice. I had a good time as well. Well, guys, the final day of the activation has come, and we've already got some people starting to head home. We know all of you have been joining us from around the world. I checked out the website. We've got Romania, we've got UK, we've got Germany, we've got Australia, New Zealand, of course, Canada, Mexico, and the US. We've got people from all around the world, more than 15 countries tuned in to this activation. So thank you, everybody at home who's been watching with us and following along. We hope you will come join us next year. We're so grateful to have you all with us on this. So we're going to just jump right into it, guys. We got a final day of powerful presentations. These are all focused on our theme of building free and conscious communities. So as always, each of our speakers is going to interpret that in different ways. And our first speakers, I know somebody that you are all very excited to hear from. So let's not waste any more time and let's bring her onto the stage. Please give a warm welcome to Catherine Austin Fitz.
Thank you, Derek. Can you hear me? Can you just give me a sound check and tell me if you can hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah, okay, you can hear me. Thanks. Okay. Can you see the slides? Derek, can you see the slides?
No, Catherine, we can't see them yet. If you click the present button at the bottom of the screen, you should be able to upload them or grab them from your device, and then we'll pop them on the screen. We don't see them on our
I
end
have
right
to
now.
upload them?
No. And if you want, you can send them to me via Telegram if you got that, and we'll get them put up on
Okay,
our
let me
site
try
if,
and do
if
that.
you are having
It's
trouble
going
on
to
your
take a
end.
second.
Nothing? Okay, we're gonna get those in just a moment. Catherine, send those over to us and we'll get them up. If you want to just go ahead and get yourself started, we'll get them on screen. Catherine, we'll come for you.
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.
I'm going all the way up. I'm going all the way up. I'm letting go in my heart of everything that holds me down. No, it's a clean slate, got a reason. The horizon is closer than it was. I will be there if you need me. I believe that we can grow.
Our power is in our voice. Our power, it's in our thoughts. Our power is in our actions. Our power, it's already innate in who we are. We are the earth. We are the sky. We are the trees. We are our ancestors. We are the future generations. We are all that is.
And we're back. All right. Okay, Catherine, we're ready for you. We got your slides. Since we're doing it this way, you're going to have to let us know next slide for us to kind of go for it. So I apologize about that, but they are ready to go and the stage is all yours. Thank you.
Okay, just bring, do you have them up? Well, I don't know if you have them up or not, but we'll just go. I want to talk about building free and conscious communities, and I'm going to use a tool that we have at Solari called Coming Clean. If you come into our website at solari.com, you can access a PDF, you can download it. We have hard copies if you want to purchase them, but it's much easier to just print it out and create one for yourself. And so, whatever I say today, you can follow along by accessing the Coming Clean tool. And let's just go to the next slide. I'm not going to cover all the different areas of what you can do to build free and conscious communities, but I want to focus on some really important ones. We have two choices. We can continue to move into a highly centralized controlled control grid with digital IDs and surveillance with programmable money, either stable coins, asset tokens, or CBDC. And deal with more and more local surveillance, including military-grade neural warfare, and essentially controlled by centralized systems. But we can fight back. We can do everything we can do, and there are many things we can do, starting with using cash to slow down and stop central control. But it's not enough to simply stop what is happening. We have to rebuild and start to build an economy and a society that works for us. And that's building local networks with real relationships. I'm always saying the currency of the future will be relationships of trust. And we have to do everything we can to encourage and preserve analog transaction systems and tangible assets, because we've lived through a period of financialization. That period's over, and now we're going to get back to what's real. And it starts with building much greater self-reliance in communities at the local level and community cooperation. And of course, the question is how? How do you do that? So let's look at the next slide. I'm going to organize these. Our Coming Clean is organized into our Building Wealth framework, starting with a free and inspired life, then navigation tools, risk management, living equity, financial equity, and turtle forth. And I find organizing things into these areas helps you build balance when you start to take actions. Okay, next slide. So, free and inspired life, we're in a period of not only great change, but very high friction. And I think it's very important to head in the direction of what your passion is, because that's where you'll be able to accomplish great things despite all of the friction. Next slide. So in Coming Clean under Free and Inspired Life, the three areas, and one I want to focus on, and that is be divine. At the root of what's happening, we have spiritual warfare, and we're dealing in many respects with great evil. And many years ago, I took training in spiritual warfare, and I have to tell you, nothing helped me more than that. And one of the things I learned is that this really is a faith walk, and that prayer is arguably the greatest navigation tool we have. But through divine intelligence, we can access all knowledge, and we can share and cooperate. And if we're going to have successful communities, it means a very high degree of cooperation. And that's where faith and having a successful spiritual practice, I find, not only helps each person act, but helps us act together. Next slide. Navigation tools. This is where I spend a lot of my time. I always say if you're going to get to California, you need a good map that shows California in the direction it really is, instead of sending you in the opposite direction. And we always say at Solari, there's an official reality and then there's reality, and you need to know both. And reality is for the management of your time and money, and the official reality is for the cocktail party. If you go to cocktail parties, I don't usually go to cocktail parties, but you need to know both, and you need to know when and how to apply them. Next slide. So under navigation tools, I think one of the most important things we think is you need an indicator of what's important. And later I'll talk about why it's so important that you understand how resources and money work in your community and your jurisdiction. But it will help you understand your indicators. One of the things we use at Solir is called the Popsicle Index, which is really a gauge for safety within the community. So you need to have good indicators, and you need to have great sources of intelligence. So if you're listening to Derek, I think you know a lot about that. But one of the things I find is many people waste time, lose resources because they're relying on sources of information that are not reliable and are giving them really good maps. Another thing is I used to encourage my clients when I was an investment advisor, not just do a money budget, but a time budget. In this environment, the most precious thing you have is your time. And that's why you don't want to waste it on misinformation or bad maps. But you really want to focus your time on what you need to be doing. And of course, we know a lot of what you need to be doing is very, very practical. It gets down to the core issues of safety, of energy, of food, and water, and all the practical things that happen when things start to change and current systems break down. Another thing is jurisdiction matters. If you are in a good jurisdiction, you have tremendous advantages than if you are in a bad jurisdiction. And no matter which jurisdiction you're in, you need to understand how it works, how the money works around you. How does the money work in the municipal government? How does the money work in the state government? How does the money work in international organizations that impact where you are? Who's who in your community? Oftentimes, you'll see people arguing for change in a community or change in how you do things in a community without understanding who that impacts and how it impacts. And if you have basic literacy in how the money works around you, it can help tremendously. We have a Solari report on mapping out your financial ecosystem, and it's one of the things I really encourage people to do is to learn how money in your private economy and your governmental economy works. And that's incredibly important because within it, you'll find opportunities to really start to shift resources in the direction that you want to shift them. Next slide. Risk management. The most important thing that you can do in a period of great change is to be really, really good at risk. And there are a couple of risks that I think I encourage you to focus on. Next slide. Next slide. I find the greatest mistakes that people make when trying to build community or trying to build relationships with their neighbor or trying to take local action is they don't understand the extent to which we are dealing with enormous sabotage, not just disinformation, but sort of an effort by people trying to centralize control to control through dirty tricks. We have a major series at Solari called Deep State Tactics, where we go through this in great detail. This year, we're doing a series on cognitive liberty, which is really about mind control and neural warfare. And it's exceptionally important that you understand what is happening to impact your emotions, your thoughts, and you spend time really proactively protecting yourself. So one of the things you can do is spend time in nature. You can be very judicious about how you use smartphones or other tools that deliver neural warfare. You can refuse all sorts of wearables and other tech that makes it easier to influence your thoughts this way. And you can also, with your focus on a learning environment, spend time learning about these systems and how to protect yourself and how to avoid it. But one of the things we find is critical for community building is creating spaces to work together and communicate together and plan together, where you protect yourself from this kind of surveillance and technology that tries to not just integrate your feelings and your thoughts, but the group feelings and thoughts. So learn to play to win at neural warfare and cognitive liberty. The second thing is you nothing is more important than supporting great leadership. I mean, first and foremost, you want to be a good leader, but you want to protect and support excellent leadership. And one of the things I see happening in communities is the great leaders don't get enough support. Many people tell me, I don't have time to invest in community building, or I don't have time to invest in local governance or local civic actions. You do have the time to identify the people who are doing a great job at that and supporting them. And the first thing you want to do is you want to demand very high integrity. If you live in the United States, one thing to understand is political control happens one county and one state at a time. And so if you don't protect the integrity and competence of the people locally and scaling up to the state level and then to the federal level, you're never going to get integrity at the higher levels. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is the story of Nehemiah. And in Nehemiah, the people of the town have lost part of their wall. They're in the middle of being attacked by an enemy, and the wall's gotten broken through. And in the story of Nehemiah, they have to keep rebuilding the wall at the same time that they have to defend the enemy. And so one of my favorite gospel songs talks about a tool in one hand and a weapon in the other. And oftentimes I'm asked, do we focus on stopping the control grid, or do we focus on building the kind of society and culture and economy we want? And my answer is we need to do both. So while you organize safety and food, water, energy, health, all the things we need to do to build the kind of systems that will work for us, you also need to be, depending on your jurisdiction, working with the political leadership to try and stop terrible things from happening. And that's why I keep stressing jurisdiction matters. Always ask the leaders that you want to support, how can I help? It makes a huge difference. One of the things you can always do is you can always pray for them. You can give time, you can give money, you can give gratitude, and you can give prayer. I'll never forget one of the best legislators in Tennessee telling the story of how he got emails every day of people criticizing his positions, but very rarely did he ever get an email saying, thank you for everything you're doing. It matters, but you want to engage. And if you don't know a lot about your community or your jurisdiction or your area, just start learning and support those who are doing the same. And there's great strength in numbers. So find that local leadership, be the leader that you can be, or follow the leader that you see doing the kinds of things and taking the communities where you want to go. Next slide. Living equity is all the things that can't be priced or traded. It's culture, it's education, it's families. Next slide. The thing to remember is that all financial wealth comes from living wealth, and it starts with creating living equity. So there are many different areas of creating excellent living equity. One of the ones I like to focus people on is good health. We are dealing in an environment where most people in North and South America, particularly North America, are targeted by what I call the great poisoning. And that's why it's exceptionally important that great stress is placed on how to have healthy water, how to have healthy food, and everything you can do to start building up your local food and water systems is essential. And so one of the best ways of organizing into conscious communities, everybody has to eat, and many, many things first organize around food. The second thing is the children are our future, and you may have children or you may have grandchildren or not, but we are all much better off if together we're protecting the children from the great poisoning and helping to make sure they have a great education. In many communities now, that means homeschooling. And one of the great political successes in America has been the homeschoolers regularly defeating the effort to stop homeschooling. And so whether you have children or not, you want to make sure you're not going to have a successful community unless you have a community that's wonderful for children. And it starts with good food and good water and protecting them against the great poisoning, but also great education. We encourage people in our network to do what's called Solari circles because we find that, you know, doing all of these things, whether it's the energy, whether it's the food, whether it's the health, um, it's complicated. These are, when somebody says it's time to learn how to be your own doctor or learn homeopathy or any of these different things, it's very time consuming. It's a real learning journey. And there's nothing like having lots of other people with skills in these areas that can help you figure out what to do and how to do it. If you look around the different areas that make a resilient or community resilient, you absolutely want to identify who are the people you can trust in all of those different areas, and we help each other. Next slide. Then financial equity, because money is a power tool, and it's a power tool we use to build our world, and it's very important that whatever we do, we optimize the economics of our situation. So next slide. So there are many different areas to financial equity and coming clean. But the first is when I first became an investment advisor, I was an investment advisor for 10 years. I'm no longer an investment advisor. But I had many people tell me that they were alienated from the financial system and they hated money. And I was stunned to learn that they didn't understand what a great mapping tool money is. Money's just a tool. And one of the reasons, if you're going to build a conscious community, you want to be very conscious of how you and your family's money works, but then how the community's money works, the business's money's works, the municipality and the city's money's works, and all the different sort of economic organizations in your place. You want to be able to map out and understand how their money works, because the more you can make things work well the more successful your community can be. So this is a matter of valuing precious resources and appreciating them and appreciating what the impact is on other people, what raises their expenses, what reduces their expenses, what raises their income, what reduces their income, and looking for ways of making that more efficient. I constantly talk about the importance of building wealth. And there are many different ways of building wealth, but the reason I think it's so important is, again, that we need to make things economic. So I always say, you can build wealth, or you can build poverty, or you can build nothing. Which do you want to do? The World Economic Forum and Mr. Global have an image of our future where we have no assets, and I reject that future because, in my experience, the thing that most supports successful communities, most supports successful families, and most supports freedom is family wealth. And so I'm a great believer in families having resources and being able to accumulate those resources. When, again, I was an investment advisor, one of the things I discovered was the thing that made it possible for families to educate their kids and send their kid to college or provide the kind of resources they needed for medical emergencies or hard times was because they had built wealth. And they built that wealth by creating an enterprise that was useful to other people. And it was from that utility and serving other people that they built the kind of wealth that then provided for the family. I'm a great believer in voting with my money. If I sit down with most people in the English-speaking world, what I discover is if you look at their retirement savings or their savings or where they bank or who they do business with, they are voting with their money to support the people who are killing them and their kids. So it's very important. One very important part of coming clean is aligning our money with the kind of world we want to create. If we're going to build a human civilization, then we have to finance a human civilization, and if we have to stop financing our enemies, essentially. It's the same with our job, and this can be a longer, harder journey, but anything we can do to move away from making our money in the workplace in a way that helps build the control grid or helps deliver neural warfare or do anything that harm people, delivers the great poisoning, We want to use our job to, again, build the kind of world we want to. Obviously, we want to protect our resources. There are many people all over America fighting to stop data centers that are going to harm their land and harm their water. And finally, gift and tithe with intention. It's very important that you look at all the organizations that you support with your donations or your volunteer time and make sure they're spending their money and their resources to build the kind of world you want to live in. I can't tell you how many people I know who give enormous donations to academic institutions or foundations which are busy pouring their endowments into building the control grid. And finally, you want to integrate your time. You want to have an integrated view of both your financial budget and your time budget. Okay, next slide. So this is my favorite part of the Building Wealth curriculum. It's called Turtle Forth, and Derek is the master of turtling. He may not think of it that way, but he is, and that's because Turtling Forth is about never quitting, always learning continuously, because it's through that process that you see where you're going to go. So next slide. So everything, if you've ever tried to learn all the different things you need to build a successful community, whether it's safety and sort of protecting everyone against organized crime or neighborhood watch, or energy, or doing your own energy, or doing your own health, or building a real health system, learning homeopathy, fastest growing medical system in the world, all these different things, unbelievable complexity. It takes time. And so we want to do everything we can to raise our learning metabolism. And that's why I love teaming up with other people and people who can teach and people who can help, because everything we need to move forward in this kind of environment with great changes, we need a higher learning metabolism, and there's always more to learn. The second thing we need to do is cultivate faith. There's a wonderful line from Scripture: faith is the substance of things hoped for but not yet seen. Fear does not, it's fine to do great risk management, but don't let fear come in. Always have faith that there is a way. Always have faith that we can create it, and we can create it together. And so you want to do great risk management, but you don't want to let fear in. And fear, in fact, is very effectively used by the people who centralize power to get people to quit learning or to give up. One of my favorite lines is at the bottom of the slide from John Rappaport. He says, "The greatest things are forever a trillion miles behind hopelessness." One of my favorite movies is The Never-Ending Story, and the protagonist in The Never-Ending Story is he's fighting the nothing. And the nothing is a force that moves around the universe, deleting meaning and destroying value. And so the question is, can the protagonist defeat the nothing? And when you're engaged in spiritual warfare, and when you're dealing with people who literally have no empathy towards you and view you in the way that some of our leaders view us, you can really feel like you're up against the nothing and great evil. And we can't let that, we can take that into account, but we can't let that get to us, because in fact, all solutions start with love, and from love is you get your power from love. You get your power from the divine intelligence. And so, fear can be a gift. One of my favorite books on safety is The Gift of Fear, but you cannot let it take you over, and you cannot let it control you. And the last thing, and this gets back to Turtle Forth, the meaning of Turtle Forth is you can never, ever quit. I can't tell you how many times in my life I've seen, whether in my own situation or in sort of political movements or great change, things always look hopeless until a group of people who never quit break through. It's amazing how it always looks like you're going to lose until the last minute, and then whoops, you win. So and that's why whatever you do, you must never, ever, ever quit. And we call it turtling. So at Solari, when we really get stuck or stumped, you'll hear us on our meetings, and somebody will say, "What should we do?" And somebody else will say, "Well, let's just turtle." You move forward taking the actions that you can take. Okay, next slide. Okay. Again, I said this comes down to your time. You need to start now, this week. Here's how you do it. The first thing you do, again, I'm a great believer in prayer. Some people do meditation, but you need to really access the divine intelligence to get going. And it helps you focus on what's important. And then you need to identify what you can do to stop doing things that are eating up your time or eating up your energy. Can you cancel watching TV? Can you cancel your time on corporate or social media? Can you go on an information diet where you shift taking in information about things that are not useful to you and shift them to what really inspires you? So get radical about moving out of your life things that are not giving you the intelligence you need or the energy you need, and move them to things that do. One of the things you need to do is you need to start supporting institutions that you can trust. And one of the things I find many people need to do is open an account at a good local bank or credit union. Find a well-governed, good, well-capitalized local bank or credit union and get out of the big banks. Again, stop financing your enemy. Sit down and do a learning plan and a time budget to build local resistance and resiliency. And as you do that, identify the people around you who have the skills you think are excellent in the relevant areas, and see if you can't reach out and start to connect with them. Again, think small. Just pick out one or two local leaders and literally make the effort to get to know them or to figure out what you can do to help them and go from there. But each time it's a matter each week of shifting hours out of activities or clubs or people that are not serving you as well as others who could help you start to build that local resiliency and start to improve your connection locally in your community. Next slide. So again, you can find copies of Coming Clean at Solari.com. If you just do a search for Coming Clean, you'll pull it right up. You can download the PDF or print it out. And again, we have hard copies at the shop if you prefer that. And I believe, Derek, we have 1 minute for questions.
Yes, Catherine, we do have time for questions. Make some noise for Catherine Austin Fitz, everybody, first. Give her a warm round of applause. We do have, you actually have about 5 to 10 minutes that we could work with since we started late, Catherine. So sorry about the issues earlier, but yes, let's go ahead. Let's start. Please look into this camera.
Hi, Kathy. It's a question about travel. You know, they're going to start with that digital ID,
I can't hear you. Can you speak
tomorrow. I know you travel a lot throughout the world, and maybe you go to Europe quite a bit. And I know they're going to start putting those systems of biometric surveillance in Europe, especially in the airports. Now, the question is that going to hinder your travels over there, or you have any way to opt out of that? Thank you.
So, Derek, I couldn't hear the question.
Catherine, he's asking about your thoughts on travel restrictions, like digital IDs for travel, and specifically in Europe, and how that's impacting you, and if you have any ideas on how to navigate that.
So, one of the things I have it on my list to do is try and figure out how you can get in and out of Europe without living with the biometrics. I don't know how to do that. I do most of my travel around Europe by car, and that's, by traveling as much as possible by car, I avoid as much of it as I possibly can. But I think the only way you can avoid it is if you enter into Europe on the landmass at a place that doesn't do it, and then you travel by car.
All right, thank you, Catherine. We have another one here. You step up.
Hi, Catherine. How do we tell if a local bank or credit union is trustworthy? What kind of questions can we ask them? How do we know that they're not just going to fold like the big banks do?
So if you come to Solari, we have a 4-part series on how to find a local bank. And it goes through every question you might have or anything you might want to know on how to do a search, how to identify the quality of the governance and the finances. And so I would recommend that series to you. And again, you're looking for a well-governed, well-managed, well-financed bank or credit union because, and you're looking for one where you can have a relationship with decision makers. They know you and you know them, and that is great protection when times change or things go wrong. But I would encourage you to listen to that presentation, and ideally, if there are people in your area that are also interested in shifting, it's a great thing to do in a group because one, you can command a lot of attention from the banks and credit unions. Between all of you, you can get lots of good references or intelligence from local professionals, and it helps to go through the process each other. I always encourage everyone, if you do find a new bank or credit union, open an account and get to know them and make sure it's working successfully before you close the old account or shift your money. I often recommend to people that they have more than one institution so that if anything goes wrong. Now, if you do move to a local bank or credit union, it is possible that that they will get bought by a larger institution. That happens. And so that's the advantage of having at least two, because then if one gets bought, you're not locked into one. I remember there's a wonderful scientist who called me, emailed, and said, "I'm J.P. Morgan Chase just shut down my both my checking account for my business and for me personally." And I said, "What in the world are you doing banking at the lead bank in the financial crisis?" And they said, "Well, if I just go to a small bank or credit union, they'll just get bought out. So I might as well stay with the big guys." And I said, "You know something? This is what you get." So I assure you, we always get inconvenienced as relationships change, but you are much better off going to a really excellent bank that knows you and is well governed and well managed than getting shut down or mistreated by the big banks. And again, in a period of great change, you need institutions and businesses that you can get a hold of and they know you and you have a relationship. Again, we're going back to a world where relationships with competent and people of integrity count a lot. But you have to invest in them and you have to build them, and they don't always work. Some don't. You have to try to build 10 to get 5. So make the time. Again, this all comes down to your time, but there's nothing more important than building those relationships with high integrity people and competent people and institutions in the areas that are critical to a successful community, and certainly banking is one of them.
All right. Thank you, Catherine. We have 2 more questions. One for me. I want to follow up with you on that one. So like you, I also recommend people to get out of the big banks. I never understood why after the financial crisis, people are still using Chase, as you mentioned, and Bank of America and those institutions. And I encourage people to go to local credit unions and smaller banks. And I still support that. But in the last year or two, I've really started to realize that they're still under the same institutions. The head of the National Credit Union, I can't remember what their main organization is. He speaks at the World Economic Forum. He's talked about CBDCs. And eventually, whenever that whole system comes in, whether it's stablecoins or CBDCs, even credit unions will switch over, as you know. Could you just share your thoughts on that? Like what next steps might be after that, or keeping cash in the mattress? I'm a fan of that. What are your thoughts on that, Catherine? How the credit unions are under the same institutions?
All financial institutions are under a regulatory framework, and they are not going to want to cause offense to their regulators. So they all have to be careful. Now, within that portfolio, you have some bankers who are violently opposed to the centralization, even though they have to be careful about how they say it. And I found that supporting them makes a big difference, because when the Fed has to negotiate with 4,000 bankers instead of 10, you're going to get a much more decentralized or decentralized approach. I also think that even though they're under the same regulatory framework, they're within the small banks and credit unions, there's enormous financial literacy that can be tapped to help a community grow more resilient and healthier. They just have a wealth of great knowledge about the community and what makes it go economically. I'm a great believer, as much as possible, in analog systems where we can transact outside the banking system so that we're not dependent on it. And one of the things we always encourage in the circles, if they're interested, is the equivalent of a savings club. So the immigrants call it a partnership or hand. And it works as follows. Let's say our hand is $100 a month, and we meet once a month. We're a group of entrepreneurs, and every month we come together, we each throw $100 in the pot. There are 10 of us, and one person takes the 1,000. Now, you can only do this if everybody is very high integrity and competent, obviously. But what happens over time is, $10,000 of our float is out there on the community in our hands. So we're banking in what I call the people bank instead of the banking system. We're floating our money. Now, that means we need to be able to keep cash and gold and silver and other tangibles. So believe it or not, the most successful currency in Russia, when the system imploded after the wall came down and the Soviet Union imploded, the greatest currency was vodka. I'm not recommending we all keep bottles of vodka, but tangible assets that are useful for barter in the worst case, and that are not perishable, are great things to have. So if you come to my home in Hickory Valley, I have enormous inventories of things to trade in the worst case. So and obviously gold and silver, we have a great deal of information on gold and silver. It's a Leary report. We have a great article called "What Percentage of My Assets Should I Hold in Precious Metals?" And gold and silver and other analog tools are great things to have to use as currency as well. So it's not either or. You want to have a great bank and credit union, ideally two institutions, so that you're not dependent on one. You want to have lots of cash. Please do everything you can to keep the analog systems going. You want to have cash, you want to have checks, you want to have gold and silver, and plenty of things to barter with.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Catherine. We have time for one more real quick question.
Hi, Catherine. I have a question for those of us who have to move money internationally. And so I'm aware of Revolut and Wise, and I've just recently tried to start an account with Revolut, and they want biometric data
So
now too.
I can't hear you. Could you talk
Biometric
up?
data. And so I'm wondering what your thoughts are. What are possibilities for those of us who need to transfer money back and forth?
So just to reiterate that, Catherine, the question is about what they call neobanks, like Wise, which used to be known as Wise Transfer, and Revolut, so people can hold money in them like a banking institution, transfer it internationally. It's the only sort of banking institution that I use, and I will say, just from my experience, last year, Wise debanked me right before this event and held all the money we had for this event hostage for about 3 weeks until I had to send it to a family member. I've been using Revolut since then as a temporary solution. I'm sure I'll have the same problems eventually. But as was just mentioned, they now require biometrics. When I joined last year, it wasn't required. But now everybody who's tried to join since has said they're asking you to take a picture of your face and do this. So what are your thoughts on those neobanks?
So that's funny, Derek, could be because I spent a long time trying to open an account at Revolut, and then the guy who was helping me, I think he left, and so I was going to start it again. But now that you've told me they require biometrics, I guess that's it for Revolut. I've some of my partners have had very good experience with Revolut, but obviously if they're requiring biometrics, I'm not interested. We've had very good experience with Wise and used to use them a lot. I just find, for a variety of reasons, doing everything by wire with my local banks is better. And then, of course, because I have a company here in the Netherlands, we do many things through the company here in the Netherlands and the banks we use here in the Netherlands. So, but my personal experience with Wise was very good, and some of my partners with Revolut had been very good. So I think, my feeling is you want to have multiple options and you want to test them, and you want to test them with small amounts before you go to big amounts. And unfortunately, I've heard the story of what happened to you at Wise happening essentially with just, you name it. I've heard a horror story.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Catherine. Everybody make some noise for Catherine Austin Fitz for joining us today. Thank you. We'll see you soon,
Thank you,
Catherine.
Derek.
We really
Have a
appreciate
wonderful
you.
day.
All right. We're going to continue on with our next presenter. She's also joining us virtually. She was supposed to be here in person, couldn't make it again. Travel issues for a lot of people. This is going to be a really important one. Remember, today is all about building free and conscious communities. Catherine just shared some information on how to prepare yourself and your community. Our next speaker is Valerie Haynes, and she's going to be talking about what she calls creative provinces. And this is about how to build your own communities, how to build your ideal community. So please give her a warm welcome and your full attention. Right. We'll get Valerie in just a second. We do want to, again, extend a welcome to Catherine. Thank you to Catherine Austin Fitz. She's been a part of this event since the beginning. Pretty much every year she's spoken, and her organization, Solari, has also been one of our sponsors every year. We're going to go ahead and just play a quick ad, and we'll get Valerie on real quick. Guys, thank you.
Since 2012, the Conscious Resistance Network has been an independent media organization focused on empowering individuals through education, philosophy, health, and community organizing. We work to create a world where corporate and state power do not rule over the lives of free human beings. Our motto is leading by example and helping others in their pursuit of freedom. Visit theconsciousresistance.com to find our articles, documentaries, interviews, podcasts, books, and more. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free.
All right, and we're back for day 5 of the People's Reset 2026. Thank you guys at home for being here. Thank you everybody here in person. We're going to continue on now. We have Valerie Haynes to speak to us about creative provinces. The stage is all yours, Valerie.
Hi, Derek. Can you hear me and everything? Can you all hear me? Derek, can you hear me? Here are my slides, but I'm not sure that you can hear me. Hey, Derek, can you please tell me if you can hear me? Well, I guess you can hear me. I'm not hearing otherwise. Okay. Let's see if I can work this slide, these slides here. Okay. What are, okay. All right, just a minute now. Derek, okay, it says everyone can see and hear you. Okay, good. And now I'm just, okay, I'm going to start. I'm not sure which slide I'm on, but okay. I need to go back here. I need to go back. Anyway, let's begin. Right now, creative provinces are forming all over the globe, and it is truly a worldwide grassroots movement. What I'm referring to are envisioned communities based on a creative lifestyle vision, a culture and industry, an environment, a transportation system, or any combination of those. Okay, I just got a note here from, okay. We're seeing all the beginnings: retirement communities, religious order communities, eco-intentional communities, and Amish and Mennonite settlements. But now these are expanding as heritage communities are revived. Now okay, I really need to get back to my previous slide. I need to get that, there, thank you. I don't know how that happened. Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm not sure if I'm running the slides or if you are, but in any case, I need to go to the next slide. So what are creative provinces? They are the next generation of intentional communities based on aligning private property, small communities based on a creative lifestyle vision, a culture and industry and environment, or a transportation system, or any combination of those. And there's a quote that I love by economist E.F. Schumacher, the late economist who wrote "Small is Beautiful." And he says, in small-scale enterprise, private ownership is natural, fruitful, and just. And Thomas Jefferson, of course, his famous quote, "A community of small farmers, land property owners, will be the only assurance that the freedom our republic offers will be guaranteed to each and every citizen." Let's go to the next slide. Thank you. So creative provinces are forming all over the world. This is a worldwide grassroots movement. Envisioned communities based on a creative lifestyle vision, a culture, industry, environment, or a transportation system, or a combination of those. And we're seeing the beginnings in retirement communities, religious order communities, eco-intentional communities, and Amish and Mennonite settlements. Next slide. Maybe I can do this. But now these are expanding as heritage communities are revived. In Scandinavia and elsewhere, people are creating and living in Viking enclaves with authentic small abodes where they live the Old Norse traditions of costume, food preparation industry, music, dance, and they are building longboats and embarking on Viking journeys. In Versailles, France, and Vienna, Austria, people are bringing back 18th and 19th century dancing with grand balls and fetes filled with exquisite costumes. And the Roman Empire is coming back in a big way. There are a substantial number of active groups worldwide spanning multiple countries. Thank you. Okay. Reenactment groups are exploding worldwide. There are thousands of reenactment groups worldwide spanning numerous historical periods and regions. In the U.S., people are reliving the American Revolutionary War and Civil War eras, as well as early 20th century, in big ways with battle reenactments, costume events, and living the life of our heritage. The Society for Creative Anachronism, one of the largest international groups, has chapters in over 20 countries, including the US, Canada, Australia, Europe, and parts of Asia. Okay, I'm trying to get to the next. There we go, thank you. More heritage communities are being revived. The medieval world is being revived with medieval costume and martial arts, including armored knights and horses and jousting combat. Communities like the Kingdom of Loxwood in England are bringing Camelot to life. In the American West of the North and South, gauchos and cowboys and cowgirls have kept alive the costumes, cattle drives, campfires, horsemanship, saloons, and Texas two-step and other music and dancing of their heritage. Online forums reveal a vast number of smaller, localized, and niche groups, such as Viking reenactment clubs we mentioned, around the world, indicating a highly decentralized and widespread community. Next slide. And in the indigenous world, worldwide, they are reclaiming their lands, languages, and traditions in the American West. And in the American West, bisons are just recently being reintroduced to their land. Next slide. Heritage and creative travel is also significant in these communities. Hot air ballooning is growing worldwide, and it won't be long before we'll have provincial hot air balloon corridors for travel. Horse and buggy communities number in the tens of thousands worldwide, the largest among the Amish and Mennonites. Vintage automobile clubs are growing and will expand to connect with other vintage automobile groups to create heritage 20th century provinces. Vintage train lines are becoming the rage in New York City and around the world. Historic ships are being rebuilt and used for travel and reenactments. Next slide. People are also reclaiming their heritage industries, small and micro farms, cottage industries, homesteads with backyard chickens, goats, pigs, bees, gardens, and orchards. I myself have backyard chickens and roosters also. You'll see a picture by Betty Fraley behind me here called Cockerels, her colorful roosters. Next slide. That's the three little pigs there. We are witnessing the building of humanity's great creative empire. Vibrant, small communities where people are actively living the lives of their dreams, and it's happening all over the world. Not from the top down, not a from the top down empire of a few people taking control of the world. No, it's an empire of endless small communities which can be compared to nature's endless species, all working together to make the whole earth a magnificent living being. Next slide. So what are creative provinces? I am Valerie Larson-Haynes, author of Creative Provinces, A New World of Enchanting and Empowered Communities. I have a degree in political science and a varied background in political, military, scientific, natural health, publishing, and arts fields. I've been developing this community structure since the 1980s. And in 2000, I moved to a beautiful village in upstate New York, which traditionally has been surrounded by small organic dairy farms. But these have been unfortunately dwindling in recent years for a variety of reasons. But interestingly, in the past decade, old order Amish families have settled down the road and have grown considerably both in population and farmland ownership. And their farms are very successful. Next slide. As I got to know many of the Amish in our community and studied their lifestyle, I was struck to discover that their community structure was exactly the one that I had developed for Creative Provinces. Their structure is durable. The Old Order Amish have been growing in the U.S., Mexico, and beyond from the few families that came to the New World in the 1600s to over 411,000 people, and the global Mennonite population is over 2 million, with a significant presence in North America, Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean. And it is this structure that has made, and it is this structure that has made the Amish Mennonite type of intentional community so successful and durable. So let's go through the structure. There are 8 foundation principles. Next slide. Principle 1, Creative Provinces are communities formed from the roots up by people with a shared vision grouping themselves and their properties together. And there's a picture of Amish farm families. Next slide. The private property foundation. Pope Leo XIII said, for every man has by nature the right to possess property as his own. This is from his 1891 encyclical Rerum Novarum, which affirms that the right of private property is a natural and inherent right of every individual, grounded in human dignity and reason. And Thomas Jefferson said, the true foundation of Republican government is the equal right of every citizen in his person and property and in their management. And then these other 2 quotes I mentioned earlier. So next slide. So intentional communities connecting private properties, that's what Creative Provinces are. And today there are many intentional communities like eco-villages, retirement communities, co-housing communities, religious order communities, and so forth. And they all begin with a shared vision, but most of them are also limited in certain ways, in that usually because they contain a piece of property that members buy into. And that's okay, but there are limitations to that. Creative Provinces, on the other hand, grow as people join the vision along with their properties that correlate with that vision, and members retain ownership of their properties. And when I say the properties that correlate with that vision, for example, if you have a property, let's say you have 2 properties, you have one around a lake, and you want to form a quiet province around that lake, your property on that lake would be part of the quiet community. But your property over, 10 miles away would not be part of that, of the aggregate province property. So, for example, if you own a castle and join the medieval province, your castle is part of the province, but you retain ownership of your castle. Next slide. The second principle, Creative Provinces are the real thing rather than the appearance of. Next slide. We are bringing real communities back to life. This great photo, the medieval Knights on Horse book, is by Snowhill from Adobe Stock, and it is meant to demonstrate that Creative Provinces are not virtual communities or theme parks. They are places where people actually live and work and travel. For example, if you are an ancient Rome history enthusiast, you might form a Creative Province with other enthusiasts and recreate ancient Rome. And it would be the real ancient Rome, not a theme park. And I'll get into the realness of it in a minute here. As mentioned earlier, there are countless Roman reenactment groups, and they are growing. Mark my words, we are witnessing an organic process, and these groups are going to eventually join together and recreate ancient Rome, complete with the Senate, Caesar, and of course, the Roman legion. Next slide. Principle 3, Creative Provinces are limitless. They can have any vision, be anywhere, be any size, and can grow, shrink, change shape, connect, overlap, and federalize. And this, you might recognize this lovely picture by Nikki Boehm of the hot air balloon hot air balloons. It's very pretty. Next slide. This is a dynamic, limitless structure. The creative and unchangeable nature of creative provinces is part of their organic strength and reflects their living nature. The limitlessness of creative provinces can be compared to two things: to the infinite variety of species we find in nature and their ever-changing growth and migratory patterns, and secondly, to a body's living microbiome. So here's an example, a Wild West province. Let's say you start one in Texas, and soon people join from Arizona and Mexico and other places far and wide. Over time, your Wild West province grows and changes shape as people join or leave. And they also can overlap. You may have a provincial member who belongs to a horse road province as well, and others who belong to an organic farm province, and others who and other members who belong to other provinces. And these other creative provinces overlap with your Wild West province. Next slide. Province federation. So continuing with the Wild West example. And then some gauchos from Argentina form a separate Wild West province of the South. And you later decide to create a federation of Wild West provinces, which you all join for mutual benefit and various cowboy activities. Next slide. Principle 4 is creative provinces have heritage treasures, which are integral to their real-life existence and which they appropriately create, revive, appreciate, maintain, protect, and use. They're not just museum pieces. They're being used. Okay, next slide. So when provincials join a creative province, they bring with them any number of heritage treasures, such as their expertise and property that correlate with the vision, and properties not correlated again with the vision would not be included. Provincials then retain legal ownership of their correlated properties, but at the same time, these are included in the aggregate heritage treasures of the province. And heritage treasures are appropriately used and protected. For example, if you have a tall ship and join a Renaissance province, the province will want to sail the ship and use it for reenactments, etc. So you're not just going to sit around and look at it like it's a museum piece. Next slide. Principle 5, creative provinces are creative democracies. This is another painting by the late Betty Ann Trailey. And these are the ladies of the Camelot Ladies of the Round Table. That was the title of this one. Next slide. She was a costume designer as well as a painter. And a dear friend. We lost her last year. Next slide. There we go. So we can tap our imaginations to create fun and enchanting ways to manage our province. So when you form a province, you can create any kind of visionary system you want to run it. You can democratically choose to have any kind of social, political, or economic system that you can devise to manage yourself. You could have a monarchy, a direct democracy town meeting system, a tribal system, a meritocracy, a theocracy, a matriarchy, a free enterprise system, a barter system, a feudal system, a system of manners, and so on. Next slide. The visionary system ideally fits the vision. So a Victorian province might run itself entirely by using a system of Victorian manners, the standards set by the province's royal family. A grazing and hunting province that held vast open grazing lands and wilderness might democratically choose to have a council of shepherds, foresters, and huntsmen to run the province. A cat and mouse province might be run by a circle of advocates and advocate mice. A train of thought province might be run by a steering committee consisting of a chief engineer, a master philosopher, a head travel guide, and a master historian, who meet during in the train dining car for a feast during special travels. A strange province might concoct a bizarre way of managing things. Next slide. And Camelot, of course, would be run by King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. And of course, the ladies of the Round Table would probably have a separate meeting room. Maybe, who knows? Okay, next slide. Principle 6, creative provinces are free and open within their visionary structure. Next slide. Creative provinces are like almost any community organization that you can think of. Anyone can join, but you have to follow the rules. For example, a province of the North Pole might be open to anyone interested in Yule and Christmas and the making and distribution of toys. But it might also have criteria for its elf toy makers to be of diminutive stature and have toy making skills. It might have a system for choosing its Santa Claus among a worldwide network of provincial Santas who are of large girth, with a flowing white beard, and who are also accomplished in management and toy making. Without firm visionary rules, the vision will become corrupted, and you'll find, back to the Amish example, that, for example, if someone breaks the rules that the Amish have, they are shunned. Every creative province or similar type of community has its way of protecting its vision, and that's very important. Next slide. Principle 7. Creative provinces are in a complementary relationship with their sovereign state. And the Three Musketeers are here to remind us that, whichever way you look at it, okay, you can't cross that line. Okay, next slide. There are two types of sovereignty, individual and group. Individual sovereignty reigns supreme because it is given to each individual at birth by God. Individuals then give sovereignty to a group, usually a nation state, for the purpose of protecting individual sovereignty through its justice system and through its defense forces. So a provincial may be a member of one or more creative provinces and will also live, but he will also live in and be citizens of a sovereign state, following its laws and receiving the state's protective services. Next slide. So, sovereign states should not be in the role of manifesting creative lifestyles, such as religion or a health regime. We've seen this happen, and it's disastrous. To be fair to its very population, those lifestyle choices have to be watered down to make everybody happy, and then you have no, envisioned system. That happens here in my village. Or if a state tries to establish a creative lifestyle that is not watered down, but is what its citizens with the most influence want, it ends up imposing it on people who don't want it, or removing people who refuse to go along. And of course, we saw that with COVID, we saw it with the Holocaust. Okay, and as I mentioned, my village here, I was thinking it would be wonderful to have a village shepherd and have sheep mowing the lawns instead of the incessant lawnmowers. And but no, other people didn't want that, so that didn't happen, because this is not our village. It's not a creative province. Okay, next slide. I thought it was a good idea. Provincial creative lifestyles. The creative province structure allows us to to create envisioned communities without using government parameters. Governments then can be freed from having to deal with the creative visions of their varied populations and can instead focus on their primary purpose, which is to protect the sovereignty of their individual citizens. A complementary relationship then develops. For example, a wilderness province could add buffer zones and connective lands to already existing national protected wilderness parks. A state historical park might join a historic province to include its buildings, historic battlefields, and programs in the creative province. Next slide. Next, there we go. Okay, the final principle is Principle H. Creative provinces hold to the highest principles of creating community life as a magnificent, beautiful, and loving art form. And here's a wonderful picture of the Amish men building a barn. And usually it takes about 50 to 100 Amish men to build a barn, and they do it in a day or so. And it's a work of art in and of itself. Their costumes, the way they arrive in their horses and buggies, their skills, everything, the community, the barn itself. In other words, they're not just building a barn because they want a barn. They're creating the whole process of creating the barn is a work of art. So let's go to the next slide. And this brings up, here are three dimensions of art. In the first dimension of art, we make individual creations for ourselves and to share. We paint pictures, we write stories, make music, clothing, gardens, prepare food, and so on. In the second dimension of art, we make more complex creations with others. Elaborate films, orchestral works, choruses, we write and put on plays and religious services. We publish books, hold dances, create restaurants, hold feasts, and create elaborate events such as historical reenactments. All of these events use aspects of the first dimension of art. But in the third dimension of art, we create our entire lives as works of art, and we help others to create a community with us. We create and live in beautiful, enchanting communities. We travel on magnificent byways like hot air balloon corridors and vintage train lines, and we work doing the things we love. Next slide. So creative provinces are life as art. Like the Amish barn raising, pictured previously, with creative provinces, our whole lives and communities are works of art. Our costumes, our transportation and travel, our music and dance and other arts, our industries, our activities, our manners, language, and way of life. Next slide. Okay, there are four types of creative provinces. Mentioned earlier, transportation and travelways, environment, industry, and cultural provinces. Next slide. So the first type of province is our transportation and travelways. And we have among those, we have animal transportation and travelways, pedestrian, motor vehicle, rail, air, water, and combined. So let's look at some of those. I don't have pictures of all of them, but okay, so here's the countryside forest road province, an animal transportation and travelways province. And people can create these using their private properties. Right now, traveling by horse and buggy or sleigh or anything else, or on horseback is dangerous on roads with automobiles, with motor vehicles. So these provincial horse roads can be created. Now, this will take time. This doesn't happen overnight, not quite like a barn raising, but you never know. Okay, next slide. Another animal transportation and travel waste province is, let me see another slide here. There we go. An open range province. Here's the Rawhide Open Range Province. And in this case, people in the West who are, have cattle ranges, they put their ranges together and they can drive their cattle to abattoirs and so forth. Next slide. Another type of animal migration, animal transportation province is our migration corridors for, in this case, swans, the monarch butterflies, and so many other species. These can be created, people can make their properties good for whatever migrating species there is. And here, the next one we have is the Camel Caravan Province Road, as another example of an animal transportation and travel waste province. Next slide. A motor vehicle transportation and travel waste province. This is an example of a Great Gatsby province, this beautiful picture, and I couldn't find the artist for this, but it's the sort of place you really want to live. Okay, next. Oh, back to the previous one. I used to live in North Beach, Maryland. This is quite a long time ago, on the Chesapeake Bay, and there was an antique car club there. And it was so much fun to be picked up by your antique car. You were handed a glass of champagne and taken around the town to look at various vintage houses and beautiful gardens. It was a garden tour. This is a picture again by the late Betty Ann Fraley. Whoops, can we go back to the previous one? And it's a train province. And a rail transportation and travel waste province. And in New York City now, and I tried to share this, but it's on Facebook and it wouldn't let me share it. But there are, in December in New York City, the train line there has a vintage trains once a week in December. You dress in 1930s costume and ride the train. Okay, next, and then there are waterways, transportation and travel waste provinces. This is an example of an old riverboat province. Next slide. Here's a combined province of air and motor vehicles from the Edwardian era. This is a picture by I forget now. Sorry, I have it in my book. A lot of these are in the Creative Provinces book. Okay, next slide. Industry provinces. There are farm and cottage industry provinces, open range and wild fish, game and gathering, working animal provinces, manufacturing provinces, education and research, and health. I don't have pictures, examples of all of these, but we'll just go through some of them. Okay, next slide. Okay, now this is a video. Whoops. Can I go to the previous slide, please? This was a video and it didn't translate. Can we go to the previous? It was a video of an Amish barn raising. Here's an example of a farm and cottage industry province, one that I would love to start, the land of milk and honey, where you have a lot of organic dairy farms, small organic dairy farms with pastured cows, sheep, and goats, and as well as a lot of pasture lands and so forth that would be for beekeeping. That would be conducive to bees, and meadowlands. Okay, the next slide. There's the Indigenous West. This would be an open range wild game and gathering province with bison. This time they're hunting them. And this is another video I had hoped to show you. The Burma Working Elephant Province, an example. Now this, in Myanmar, they have been using elephants for 100 years or more to help them with their forestry, because the land where they're taking the trees down here is they can't get any machinery up there. And they have over 100, I believe over 100 elephants work with them, domestic elephants. And they're like pets. They're treated so beautifully. And then at night, the domestic elephants are free to wander around. And they actually, can we go back to the elephants? And then they interact with the wild elephants and mate with them, I do believe. Okay, now we'll go to the next slide.
Valerie, thank you for your
Yes.
time. You are out of time right now. We appreciate you being here and for presenting. And we're going to make sure everybody can see your websites and find out more about your information. She was supposed to be here in person. She was going to have her books, Creative Provinces, which I encourage you guys to check out. But please give Valerie a nice round of applause. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here with us, Valerie. We appreciate you. All right, we're going to continue on with day 5, the People's Reset. We're talking about building free and conscious communities. The rest of the presenters will be in person. We have one more for the morning session, and then we'll be taking our lunch break, getting to workshops. And then I just want to remind you guys all, for those who are sticking around for the rest of the evening, tonight in this room is going to be our famous music temple and cacao ceremony. So if you're sticking around for the entire event, again, we encourage you to soak it all up before you start making your way home tonight or tomorrow. You want to make sure you can soak it all up. And for you guys at home, well, you need to come next year so you can enjoy the cacao, enjoy the music temple, enjoy the concerts and everything else. But with that said, let's go ahead and bring up our next speaker, who I have the benefit of knowing as a friend and also as a member of the Conscious Agora Eco Village that some of you guys know that myself and Miriam have been working on. Please welcome Brenda Smith to the stage.
Thanks, Derek. Got it. Check, check, check. All right, we're good. Hey, wow, I'm blind, but I know somebody's out there. So even if it's just one, I'm still going to talk to you. This is Catching Freedom. And I talked a little bit about it last year, Catching Freedom. Ooh, midwives don't deliver the babies. Only the mama does. There we go. Only the mama delivers the baby, even if it's a surgical birth. Somebody else has to do the catch, right? It's the mama who delivers the baby. I want you to think about what's the difference between catching something and just receiving something. It's the impact. It's the force. It's the power. That's what catching freedom is. Catching a baby, catching something that is wonderful. It's so much more than just if somebody gives you a gift, yeah, that's great, that's wonderful. But there's an added adjective to this. There's an added verb to it. When you catch something with anticipation. And there's actually one more adjective that we add to that. But right now, we're just going to take that. Forcefully receiving something with anticipation, it means that you were expecting it. You knew it was coming, which means that if you're the recipient, what's on the other end? Or who's on the other end? It's something divine. It's extraordinary. So we come from that point of view. It's not ethereal. It's not just quotidian. It's not just of the regular, average, run-of-the-mill stuff. This is something that's powerful. It's impactful. It changes your life. I started figuring out about 12, 13 years ago that all my life I had been a little puppet, just a sweet little girl, so compliant, just doing everything that the grown-ups and the authorities told me to do. And here I was, 50-ish years old, finally figuring out that's a bunch of crap. What in the world? Why am I paying attention to these people who have different motivations than I do? What were their motivations? In the school, in the hospital, healthcare, in politics. What were their motivations? Well, let's break it down. What's the big number one motivation, especially in the US right now? Money. You know, if there's a way to make some money, then we're going to figure out how to manipulate that. Money, power, fame, all of those things are powerful motivators to get people to do something big. Doesn't mean that it's good work, doesn't mean it's falling apart here. How's that? Doesn't mean that it's good or important work, but it means that somebody has a lot of money behind it and they can make it work. And so if we are soft enough in our hearts, that if we're not strong enough in our own hearts to recognize that there's a game going on, then we can be very much motivated by fear. And right now we're seeing it all over the place, that somebody is working those strings and somebody has a lot of money and a lot of power and a lot of fame, and they are using those motivations to get us to be afraid. And now it's our turn to say, I don't care. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of anything that you can do to me because I'm living an abundant, complete, fulfilled life. So we see this game being played. Somebody saw that a long time ago. In 1910, J.D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie, they were talking, and they were making, wheeling and dealing and making a lot of money on oil, right? And so they found a way to turn oil into pharmaceuticals, okay? But they didn't really have a way to get the masses to come along with that, because they were used to homeopathy, they were used to midwives, they were used to chiropractics or naturopathy. My grandmother was a naturopath back in the early 20s. And so people were used to the old ways. When you got sick, you didn't go to the doctor. You figured it out. You ate dandelions, which is amazing medicine. I'm wondering, okay, when's the government going to come in and say, oh, no, you can't use dandelions as medicine anymore because it's free, it's ubiquitous. But so these guys thought, if we get together and we send out a guy to do a report, then we can make them think that this is the right way to do things. And so they got this guy named Flexner, Abraham Flexner, in 1910, and they sent him out to go to all of the medical schools. And by medical schools, I don't just mean allopathic medicine, because that was really on the down low at that point. It was Black schools, Black medical schools, where they trained Black doctors in their cultural ways, granny midwives, chiropractors, naturopaths, homeopathy. And they sent this guy all over the US, and there were like 180 some schools. And at the end of this report, his recommendations were so widely accepted throughout the US that, it crossed the sea. The ramifications of this report changed healthcare around the world, and not for the better, because people started taking pills, people started eating horrible food instead of, it changed from people buying fresh food from local farmers to superstores. That's when Kroger and Big Bear and all these other big grocery stores started coming out. And what happened to childbirth at that point? Back in the day, back when my grandmothers were born, nobody weighed themselves. Nobody knew how much they weighed. Nobody went to a doctor for prenatal care. They just took care of themselves. They ate fresh food. They exercised every day because they were busy living their lives and doing important work. They decided that, well, these guys are, they're the experts. They must know what they're talking about. And they wear white coats. So, I must be compliant. And there's the giant all capitals word of the day, compliant. That's what they want. Big healthcare, big government, education. They want you to be compliant. And when you are thinking for yourself, actually being that sovereign person and making informed decisions for yourself, that makes you the enemy of the people who are trying to keep you afraid, right? So what happened to midwifery? First of all, this guy, Abraham Flexner, he decided that midwifery should be done away with. And so all of these amazing granny midwives in the South who knew the cultural ways of especially the Black community in the US, they were like dismissed. You can tire. And we lost all of this wisdom. All of a sudden, the old ways, the indigenous ways, the ways of the African American community, even less old milquetoast white folks, we forgot what our roots were. And all of a sudden, there's a new religion born. The religion of the white coat, the lab coat, the scientist, the don't you we'll take that for you. Well, in the United States, led to over a third of childbirths, being born by a cesarean section. What happened to Mexico? Did you know that in Mexico, in the year 2020, it was the first year in known history that over 50% of babies that were born in Mexico were surgical births. Over 50%? What the heck? Have we forgotten what we're capable of doing? Are women no longer capable of delivering a baby? That had nothing to do with it. How did that come about? What was the root of that? Yeah. Money, power, authority. I wear the white jacket. And how did they do that? How in the world? How did they do that? Because they had passed down generations a legacy of fear. So what are the pieces of the fear that come in? Well, it's gonna hurt. Well, hell yeah. There are a lot of things that hurt in life. Do we back away from those things? Relationships. How many of you are in a relationship? Is that always fun and games? Of course not. It's work. That's what childbirth is. It's work. It's labor. That's why they call it labor, because it's hard work. And a good relationship is hard work. So why do we do it? Because it's so worth it. It's great when you find that person who makes your heart go ka-thunk, ka-thunk, ka-thunk. It's the best thing in the world because you don't have to be alone. The risk of that pain is absolutely worth the joy that comes in dividends. So they start out with these little lies. They're tiny little lies like, well, you're getting up there. You're not a spring chicken anymore. Did you know in the state where I used to live in Arkansas, it used to be age 40. Age 40 and you were considered geriatric. If you go up to a woman that's 40 years old just off the street and she's 40 years old and you tell her she's geriatric, you're going to get bopped in the schnoz because, I am not geriatric. Now it is 35. When I started out in midwifery, and I was apprenticing with a licensed midwife, and I was getting ready to take the test for licensure, like in a couple of weeks. And I just knew I was going to ace it, And like a couple of weeks before that, I got a call from a friend of mine. Sweet, sweet woman. Always had her babies at home. And she had always used my teacher, my midwifery teacher, as her midwife. And she was just in tears. She said, Brenda, I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh, Jean, what's the problem? She said, Deb can't be my midwife anymore because I'm too old. And she was 40. Okay, I am not going to let you do this by yourself. And so I started doing her prenatals, and everything. She went into labor. I went to her house. It was a long labor. Everything was great. Baby came out. We had to wait for the placenta. It was probably like an hour and a half. And I said, look, last week I was at another birth and it took a long time. And she just sat on the toilet and I sat on the edge of the bathtub and we just chatted away. And eventually, oh, here it comes. And there it is. So I said, it's not a problem. Don't worry about it. And sure enough, in about an hour and a half, oh, here it comes. And it had trailing membranes. Trailing membranes is when the placenta is out, but there are still membranes up front. And so you just turn it. You just make a rope with those membranes, and eventually all of that comes out. Sorry, it hurts. Can you still hear me okay? All right, good. So, but anyway, she had a great birth. And a couple of months after that, I got a letter from the state of Arkansas saying, we have this birth that you attended this birth, but we don't have the doctor's visits and all this other midwifery stuff. And I said, yeah, there's a good reason for that, because she was outside of regulations and I didn't charge her one thin dime. She's my friend and I did this from love. And it was a whole big letter and I sent a certified mail and everything. Never heard a word back from them until about 20 years later. And they sent me cease and desist, a cease and desist letter. Now they knew that I didn't charge a fee, but they had been following my Facebook. And by the way, if you have a Facebook page, yeah, they're paying attention. Guess what? They're collecting all kinds of data on you because holy cow, when they tried to put me in jail for this, they had 8 years of discovery of highlighted stuff from Facebook. I kid you not. What in the world? And like for months, I couldn't even sleep at night because of all this and thinking, what am I going to do if I go to jail? And all my friends were saying, well, we'll come and pick it and all this other stuff. They were just livid, but the judge eventually dismissed it. And the reason that he had to dismiss it is because they could not find one person who would say that I charged them a fee for their birth. And it could not come through their brain how anybody would do this kind of work for free, basically. I mean, there were a lot of people who tried to pay me something, and I was always glad to accept it. But for the most part, I didn't even get my expenses covered. So why did I keep doing this? Because of the love. And that's the other adjective. Catching freedom, catching babies, catching something wonderful is receiving this powerful force with loving anticipation. It's not just expecting it. You know it's coming. It's because you love this amazing thing that's coming and you're really looking forward to it. And when you get to participate in something as precious, as divine as a natural birth, calm, gentle, it changes your life. I love water birth. And you know, in the Native American tradition, water is the mother. And so when you're in water and you're birthing a child, it's like you're in your element and you're surrounded with the same temperature as what's inside your body. And so this baby, instead of being forced out into a room full of bright lights and it's 20 degrees colder and there are a bunch of strangers there they've never heard or anything before, inside the womb it's 98.6 degrees and there's water all over the place and it's calm and it's dark and you feel mama's hands and you hear her voice, you know her voice, and daddy and whoever else is in the family, you get to know them. And then when you're able to come out gently, instead of somebody being up in the mama's face going, push, you don't need it because it's a freight train. There's a reflex called fetal ejection reflex. And nobody has to ask permission because they're going, this baby's coming out. And when the baby is gently ushered from this dimension into the next, into a world that is similar, a little bit different, but it's so much gentler because when you're going from water to water, from dark to calm, maybe you have some candles lit. I attended a birth one time when it was in a storm and all of the lights went out. And so they lit kerosene lamps and had candles all around. And the family was all over the place. And by the way, it was a geriatric pregnancy. And holy cow, she was almost 50 years old. And the dad was over 70. Yeah. And they had all like 6 other kids around and everybody was just there and so much love in that room. And that little girl is so loved. When you can participate in something so joyful, yet so peaceful, it will change your life. And that's what freedom is like. When we step into this love, when we step into an atmosphere like here, does this feel like anything else you have ever experienced? Can you actually walk into a place and feel like every single person in this room is your sibling or your mama? You can look at me, you don't have to say I'm your sister, you can say I'm your mama. Okay, but we're family. We care about the same things. We care about sovereignty. We care about compliance to our own values. When somebody wants you to comply to fear, you are worshiping the wrong God. Because that is, if you're I don't know, if you have ever read the Bible, there's a verse that says, you've not been given the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and a sound mind. When you embrace those things, you don't have to be afraid of any of those guys with the white coats or the red ties or the blue ties or the whatever the hell ties they have on. It doesn't mean anything because they have no power over you. If you have a strong mind and a strong heart and you know what you want your future to look like and what kind of legacy you're laying down for the next 7 generations, you better not comply to that because compliance to fear is rejecting what the divine has put inside of you. Are you afraid of pain? I get that. Holy cow, nobody likes pain. But there's a stronger motivation, and that stronger motivation is love. And you arrive into this world, and you can either be shocked into compliance, or you can love your way into changing this world step by step, activation by activation, handshake by handshake, hug by hug, new life by new life. When we give those babies that opportunity to be gentled into a world, what a difference it makes for their lives to start out that way. I've seen babies come out in the water and then gently brought up, and they're just looking around. Nice warm room. They're not afraid. They don't even cry. They might go, ah. And you see them moving, and you see their eyes tracking, and you know they're just fine. You don't have to, you know what they used to do, like when I was born, to get babies to cry, they used to hang you upside down by your feet, buck naked in a freezing cold room, and whack that baby on the bottom. Yeah, they're going to cry. Is that what you want for your child? Is that what you want for yourself? You want to be suspended in space and somebody beat the hell out of you so you can be compliant? They started right from the beginning, and that's not what we want. Yeah, go ahead. Ask me a question. Well, because that expands their lungs, supposedly. But, if they're doing it, that's a really good question. Why do they want the babies to cry? Because that's how they know that yeah. Okay, the baby's breathing. But if a baby is moving and their eyes are tracking and they're making sounds, you think you could figure out that the baby's okay, right? Now, when a baby is born in meconium, which is baby shit, this green globby stuff all over, and so you wipe it off. Baby comes out, you wipe out their mouth with a soft cloth. That's another thing that came from the Flexner report, by the way. You know that suction thing that they stick in the baby's nose and mouth and all that stuff? Nobody used to do that. It's a rubber suction bulb. And, oh yeah, well, what happened thousands of years in the past? You think they had the rubber suction bulb? How in the world did civilization thrive without the blue suction bulb? And that this is an intervention, one more intervention, one more thing to bring pain to that newborn child. What does that do? That takes away from them something that they needed to make them stronger. What happens with a butterfly? When that butterfly is in that cocoon and it's all snug and tight, and it starts to break out. It's starting to break out. And some sweet, kind soul comes along. Oh, poor butterfly, let me help you. And they break open the cocoon. What happens? Yeah, they shrivel. Why is this so important for them? Because that resistance is what makes their wings strong. When a baby is born and they have all this gunk down in here, they need it. It wasn't a mistake. Creator didn't screw it up. And it's hard on the parents and the doctors and whoever else is listening to it to hear them go, yeah, they're working it out. They're coughing it up. They're spitting it out. That's making their lungs stronger. And babies who go through that at birth don't get the infections, the lung infections and stuff that the babies do that have had the lean mucus trap stuck down their throat. What have we done to ourselves? We've forgotten who we are. We've forgotten that we're powerful people, that everything that we need right from the get-go is there. We need air. There it is. We need our mother to give us breast milk. There it is. perfect temperature, just the right amount. You know how big a baby's tummy is when they're born, a baby's stomach? The size of a cherry. A cherry. It is tiny. But what do they do in the hospital? They try to give you this little bottle of formula, and it's like 4 ounces. Are you crazy? A baby tries to swallow all that, they're going to spit it up. Oh, this baby's having problems. Oh, we need to monitor this child. Here's the pediatrician's number. And it's one more element of fear that's shoved onto us because we don't think we're the experts. Who is in charge of you? You. Who is in charge of you? Yeah, you are. You are in charge of you. Is there anybody else in this world who is worthy of making your healthcare decisions? Is there? No, not me. You are the only person who is worthy to make your healthcare decisions. And if you're not ready to do that, you're certainly not ready to be a parent because kids are going to throw you for a freaking loop. And that's part of the beauty of it. I had three boys, and they are my heroes. They got me through difficult marriage. I was married to my first husband for over 20 years, and he was a wonderful man, intelligent, strong, healthy, but he hated people. And to quote this man, conversation is an American waste of time. So, but I had my kids, and how could I be sorry for having a relationship with a man who gave me the 3 most important people in my life? Yeah. I will never regret that, not in a million years. And it taught me so much about myself because his anger taught me to be sovereign. His anger taught me that I cannot depend on any other human being for my joy. It has to come from in here. You have everything that you need. You have air, you have water, you have earth, you have fire. And those are the elements that we pull together and make the blessings to build our lives, to build the legacy that we are preparing for the next generations. Does anybody else have any questions? Yes. That's a good question. He asked, why did I have to not charge for my services? In the state of Arkansas, if you charge for services, you are practicing medicine with, and if you don't have a license, you're practicing medicine without a license. So they didn't like that. And so I had to work 2 jobs to be able to maintain the ministry of attending births. I did that for over 30 years. And now I live in Morelia. And already I'm starting to hear people who might be interested in having a home birth. And whether that happens or not, my other option and my other joy is to teach women the power that they have. You know what? Probably at least 85% of pregnant women could absolutely deliver their babies in their home with no outside interference or help. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we're gonna take questions. Come right up here, and you can look at Brenda, but
So you couldn't charge, but could you take donations? Could you set it
Yeah.
up legally that way?
And funnily enough, well, I love that question because one of the best donations that I got was from a family who lived in a camper. And the mama actually delivered standing up in their tiny little shower. And so I'm getting wet, boom, there's the baby, she's standing up, and it was great. It was a beautiful birth. And so afterwards, and I did the postpartum checkup and everything. And she said, well, we really want to pay you, but we don't have any money. But I have these wonderful organic apples. Would you like these apples? And they had a 4-year-old daughter. I said, I'm not going to take food out of your baby's mouth. She loves apples. She said, well, I have these organic chocolates that a friend gave me. They're really, really good. And they are, oh my gosh, they were amazing. So I gave her one and I said, I'll take your chocolates. What a sacrifice. Something so precious, when was she ever going to get something so wonderful, such a gift like that? And she offered that to me. That was a loving gift. There were people who were extraordinarily poor, impoverished, who at least paid me gas money. But by and large, the people who were very wealthy, there was a family I attended on Christmas Day. This was like 6 or 7 years ago, something like that. They never paid me a penny. And a couple weeks later, they had pictures on Facebook of them in Vegas with all the bling and all the new Nikes and everything. Okay, that's where their values are. So I just had to scrub them from my contact list because I had to do what was healthy for me. Don't keep bombarding your brain with stuff that's going to upset you. Just let it go because it's not about you. If they didn't appreciate what I did, it wasn't because of me. It was because they have other values. But I cannot and I will never regret helping a baby gently into the world.
Thank you, Brenda. All right, we have one more here.
Hey, Brenda, I really love everything that you do, and you talk with such beauty and love, and I really appreciate you. I wanted to ask specifically, what path can somebody take to become a renegade midwife? Because we know, you have to become a certified nurse and all that to
Blah, blah.
then learn midwifery. And, I looked at the farm, the NMA farm. You have to be a nurse to even take classes there. And I'm like, do you just follow as an apprentice another midwife until you learn, or what's the how can you do it?
That's an excellent question. And the answer is the divine will find your path for you. I want to bring on apprentices. I want to bring on women who are interested in birth work. And so if you know somebody who wants to have a home birth, let's get together. And I had a friend who was like her 5th baby, and she had her tubes tied and her husband had a vasectomy and they still got pregnant. And so, okay, we need to use this as a teaching opportunity. And so they had a huge house and they set it up, and she was like fixing the track lighting and having a contraction and then fixing the track lighting. And she had 3 couches set up around her room, and she invited all the ladies from the church to attend so that they could see and they could witness what a good birth is like, what a natural 100% no invasive procedures. And it was magical. Yeah. There are trainings. Generally, they are with licensed midwives. And not that that's bad. I mean, anybody who offers services, yay, thank you. And there's room for all of it. There's room for hospital births. If that's where the mother feels that's where she feels safe, that's what she should do. But there are so few people who are getting down to the roots of birth, to trust birth. Is it safe? Usually. And sometimes it's not. I mean, in over 30 years, yeah, I've attended births where 3 times the baby delivered dead. And, how do you recover from that? I'll tell you how you recover from that. Somebody calls you a week later and says, Brenda, I need you to come to my birth. And you go. That's how you recover. Because at that point, divine is telling you, don't give up. This is part of life too. It's a circle. Let me tell you something. Birth and death are twins. And there is a veil between them. In a good birth, the star is crying and everyone else is laughing. And in a good death, the star is laughing and everyone else is crying.
Can a man learn to be a midwife? And more specifically, how could I support like the future mother of my children?
That is such a beautiful question. 2 of my sons were the midwives for their partners, caught their own daughters. That's how you support. And if there are other women in your life whom you love and want to support, you can do that too. I've attended births where the whole freaking family was in there, uncles, aunts, grandmas, grandpa, dad. It didn't make any difference, gender, whatever. But that was their culture. And you support, a good midwife supports all of the mother's decisions, regardless of how I feel about it. As long as I don't have to compromise my own values, absolutely. If they feel like I can't do this anymore, Brenda, I just feel like I'm falling apart, I really want to go to the hospital, absolutely, I will support you in that. Or yeah, it's been a really, really, really long time. Do you want me to kind of check and see where things are? No, I'm fine. Absolutely. I will absolutely support every single decision you make. Thank you, Panda.
Yo soy mexicano, nací aquí en Morelia y quiero darle las gracias a ella porque alguien como ella me ayudó a llegar a este mundo hace 71 años. Yo nací en una vecindad que ahora es donde está el restaurante Cueva de Chucho. Nací en un petate gracias a le llamaban matrona, una partera. Gracias a ella yo soy un milagro viviente, me siento más libre y poderoso porque soy soberano, porque creo que todos podemos ser libres y ser nuestro propio autogobierno. Por eso estoy aquí, le doy gracias a Derrick, lo felicito, y a Yolanda, Juana González Mado, que no pudo venir, gracias a ella yo conocí este evento. Gracias por ayudar a mucha gente.
Gracias a usted.
Y a esa mujer que me trajo a este mundo hace 71 años.
Hi, and thank you so much for sharing your message. I have a question. I don't mean to incite any fear, but I do wonder how, because you have a lot of experience and you witnessed a lot of birth, how often complications occur that where the woman needs to end up to go to a hospital.
That's an excellent question. Absolutely. Yeah, to understand. I've been attending births for a long, long time, over 30 years, and I've seen a lot of stuff happen. And you kind of get this gut feeling. So what I do, I never make the decision for the mama. I tell her what my experience is. I give her suggestions. I help her understand what her options are, and then I listen. Most women, if we've been together, if we've been talking together, sharing tea, chatting, because that's what prenatal visits are for me. I don't weigh them. I don't measure stuff. If they want to hear the heartbeat, baby's fine. Okay, and we sit there and we chat. We talk about nutrition and we talk about her daily activities. So if we get to know each other and she trusts me and I trust her, then when that comes along and I'm thinking, okay, I have not experienced this situation before. What are we going to do? And so I lay out her options and then I listen. And she makes that decision every time. It's not my decision. It's not a doctor's decision. If they say, well, we're going to do a C-section, excuse me, my decision, my decision. That's what a doula is for, or a coach or a partner or something. It's somebody to stand in the gap and say, her decision. So yeah, there are situations. One, there was a woman, wow, such a powerful woman, and she went into labor, and she was like a couple of minutes from my house. So I was going back and forth. 72 freaking hours in labor, 3 days. For those of you who can't do the math, 3 days in labor, and I was okay. And I said, as long as you're fine and the baby's fine, we're good. Well, the baby's heart rate started to dip a little bit. Now I'm thinking, okay, that was head compression, but hindsight's 2020. But this is what you're going through. What do you want to do? These are your options. And she said, yeah, I think because her parents live next door and they were just fretting like crazy because she'd been in labor for 3 days. Yeah, I'll go to the hospital. So she went to the hospital. She demanded that she not have one particular doctor who was very abrasive. And so they got her another doctor. And it was fast. It was so fast. The next day, they were talking, and she heard some nurses talking, and she said, yeah, yesterday there was a woman who came in, and she was already dilated to 10 centimeters, and she just had that baby so fast, and it was her first baby. That's how you know HIPAA is working, when they're talking to a woman, and it was her, the one that went through that. Her next baby, I barely made it in. I was like 20 minutes, and she was on all fours, and I said, let's see if we can get you up to the couch, and she's looking at me like glaring through these giant eyes, and okay, not. You're going to stay right there on the floor. Yeah, boom. So she went from 72 hours to less than half an hour. It's a crapshoot, but wow, holy cow, what an amazing crapshoot. I'm ready for that game.
Thank you, Brenda. We got one more, and then we'll let you wrap up after
Yeah.
that. All right, come on.
Hi, thank you so much. It's beautiful talk that you've given, and we need to hear that, and women need to hear it for sure. A little bit about me. I have 4 sons. The first one was a hospital birth. After that, I said I'm never going back to the hospital. Then I had one with a legal midwife, and they are bound by the doctors.
Yes.
So that was, I ended up doing a Le Boyer bath for my son, but she had to turn me over, and I wasn't ready to, to do it on my own. I didn't know enough.
Yeah.
And the next 2 were not legal midwives, and those all went great,
Yeah.
because they weren't bound by anyone. But I did study to be a doula, a little bit under a
Wonderful.
midwife. I got very discouraged because many, many women ended up in the hospital.
Yeah.
And in the hospital, the doctors got in.
So you saw the domino of interventions. You saw,
Oh, yeah.
we'll just strip your membrane.
Oh, yeah.
Or we'll
yeah.
just give you a little Pitocin, or we'll
Oh,
and then boom, boom, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, and it ends up
and
getting
then you, for sure, it's very hard to have a natural birth in a hospital.
Yeah.
Because of the way they treat you, and you can't move and all that.
You
So,
feel like you have lost all of your power.
yeah. You don't have it, because very hard in that situation. If they tell you your baby is in trouble or not breathing, what are you going to say? Well, I know more. You can't. Once you're in their arena, you have got to pretty much go with them and
Yes.
hope for the best. The best thing is to try
Because
to.
if you put yourself forward as the expert, they are going to give you a harder time.
Yeah.
They're going to punish your baby because of it.
Yes.
I've seen that.
So you have to be very cool about how you
Mhm.
speak to them, and definitely have an advocate.
Yes.
Somebody that will
That's
stand.
the beauty of, she mentioned the word doula, DOULA, and it's a birth attendant. It's not a midwife. They don't catch the baby or anything like that generally. They're there to comfort and support the mother. That's a beautiful thing. And especially for women who are planning to have a medicalized birth. Wow, I say you need to have a doula. You need to have somebody in your corner who is your advocate. Yeah, I just want you to know, we talk about Derek's mantra. You are beautiful, you are powerful, and you are free. Nowhere in your history, nowhere in the events of your life will you ever feel that more powerful than in the birth of a child. And even if you never have a child of your own, I hope that you will at some point get to witness what it is like to watch a child come across that veil directly from the hand of Creator. There was a little girl, a little child, who smelled petrichor, the smell after rain, and said, that's what God smells like. I want us to have that, to smell that petrichor, to open our mind's eye to the higher things, the perfect things, and not be afraid, even when things don't go what we think they should go. If a baby lives for 3 hours, those are the 3 hours that baby was meant to be on this planet, to make a difference. And we can't minimize the effect of that life. It was perfect. But for us to demand that baby continue to breathe, continue to have a heartbeat, continue to live beyond the time that was theirs from the beginning, that's selfish of us. And we need to embrace the perfection of life and death, because we are living in societies that are so afraid of death. And it's because we don't understand. None of us have been on that other side, but we have been on the first side when we were received into this life. The best that we can do is to gentle that way before them. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. I love you.
Yeah, make some noise for Brenda, everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, give her some more applause. Mucho aplauso for Brenda Smith. Important stuff. You know, I think, to me, the value that I see in a talk like that is it's part of what we try to present the entire event as being holistic, right? For some people, maybe they see childbirth on the schedule and they're like, that's not really relevant to me. I don't see how that has anything to do with freedom or creating a better world. But as Brenda mentions, it starts at birth, right? The trauma can start at birth. The freedom can start at birth. And I think that's really important. So hopefully more and more people in our broader freedom communities and those of you at home will start to think about that as you have your freedom babies. So thank you guys for being here for the morning session. We're going to conclude things now. We'll be back at 2 p.m. Central. Everybody at home, you guys go enjoy your workshops and your lunch. We'll see you soon.
Our power is in our voice. Our power, it's in our thoughts. Our power is in our actions. Our power, it's already innate in who we are. We are the earth. We are the sky. We are the trees. We are our ancestors. We are the future generations. We are all that is.